Pochita is a very interesting little fella. We don't really know much about him. However, the more we get through the story, the stuff that we have learned, the information regarding hybrids and primal fears and the horsemen of the apocalypse, there starts to become a much clearer picture, albeit hypothetical, really starts to make a little bit more sense. And today, Pochita is a very little fella, but he's also a big fella. He technically has two forms, I would say three, that are very drastically different from one another. The first being his little dog form. Tiny little thing, has a cute little chainsaw, little ripcord tail, pudgy little fella, right? Adorable. But then he has a big fella form. 4 arms, fully armored, out of control, chainsaws everywhere, and his power, strength, and speed is absolutely unmatched. He's also technically unkillable, but you could argue that for all the hybrids, considering he can respawn out of his own body. To put it simply, he is very impressive. Now, when I say the Chainsaw Devil, that's his name, do you think his abilities, his strength, his speed, what he's capable of, suits that type of name, right? How many people truly fear chainsaws? Why is he one of, if not the most powerful devils within the story? Why is he so kind? Why is he so different to technically all the other hybrids? There's one ability that Pochita has that's very weird. It doesn't suit him. This is being able to erase the existence of any living creature, being, devil, you name it. I say living loosely because he can also erase ideas. He can erase this theoretical boundary or concepts relating to said people or things. This is a very powerful trait to have, and one that does not fit with the fear of chainsaws. So it leads to this idea that Pochita is much more. But from what we know from the story so far, Pochita is the only person, the only devil that can provide a true death to other devils. Technically, when devils die, they respawn back in hell and have the opportunity to go to Earth, vice versa, etc., etc. Either way, they will respawn in some fashion. Pochita is the only person we know that does not allow this. He can eat people, eat devils, and they will be erased and forgotten forever. Unless you think about what the War Horseman said about throwing that person back up. To understand Pochita, we should probably look at the hybrids. This all has to do with them, their purpose, their skill, their abilities, but also what they can and can't be mixed with. There's a very interesting...
Could you leave a like and subscribe?
There is not many hybrids in the story of Chainsaw Man Part 2. I think there's like 8 or 9. I could be entirely wrong off the number, but we've seen pretty much all of them. They were controlled by Makima, and they all kind of represent weapons of some kind. Sword, flamethrower, spear, whip, nuclear warhead, which is... Now, hybrids are in their own kind of separate category from what we know. They sit between both worlds. They are both a devil but also human, and the difference between a hybrid and a fiend, for example, the human is still alive. Every hybrid that we know of technically should have some sort of human counterpart or component that is a part of them. This means a human conscious, human understanding, and not technically a devil in a human disguise. They have fused or become one with the human experience and have kept all of the human emotion, thoughts, etc. within them. It's a little bit boring, but theoretically there is semantics for it. Obviously, the way Denji became a hybrid could be different for the others, which results in maybe a different percentile of how much devil or human they technically are. We don't know. Will we ever find out? Who knows? Pochita, however, is very different, but Denji is very much considered a hybrid, and for that reason, he is also a weapon. When you think of Pochita as a weapon, that's quite literally the worst weapon you could have. Not in a this is really bad weapon that can't be used, but more so if you use this weapon, you could quite literally change the fate of the universe, of the human nation, of devil society. Too powerful. Why is... The more I started to think about the hybrid's purpose and what they're actually designed for, the more I link them back to horsemen. Think of it as tiers: devils, fiends, hybrids, horsemen, and then primal fears, right? But just from what we've seen so far, the hybrids have always been used as weaponry for the horsemen. What makes me believe this to be a legitimate thing, and maybe the hybrids were created by the horsemen, is that every horseman that we've known so far has the ability, the second-hand ability, mind you, to control someone in reflection of their own power. So Makima, quite literally being control, can control people using the organs or chains from her body, right? Fami can also do it by starving people, and Yoru, being war, does it by using guilt. Now, there's no real explanation on why they have these secondary control abilities, but if they created hybrids or weaponry that were partial human, partial devil, this would allow the horsemen to enhance their capabilities to be higher up on the food chain. Basically, think of commanders or admirals controlling devil society in the hierarchy because they can wield other devils. But instead of normal devils, they have tailored devils towards what they want. If this started from hell, you could say that this would make it easier for them to branch over into Earth society and rule it that way if they wanted to, by taking the hybrids and integrating them into society. So if the horsemen created hybrids for themselves as weaponry, what would they call them? Tools? Weapons? Slaves? Funny enough, another name that has been erased from existence thanks to Pochita? Who knows? Pochita's power is funny. Being able to erase people from existence is something that not any ordinary devil would have. So why is Pochita so strong? Let's put it like this. Horsemen created hybrids to be used as weapons. Who do you think Pochita would be created by? I wouldn't say control. I probably wouldn't even say war. Maybe Fami, but the one that draws me in is death. And the only reason I can think of Pochita being a very specific tailor-made weapon for death is because of the power of true death to erase people from existence. Why? Why would death want Pochita or another devil to do all of this, right? Well, from what we have known, the horsemen are not these big, crazy, commander-like monstrosities that are inhumane. They all have very simple, kind of oddly realistic interpretations of normal human beings. War has an incredibly fragile ego. Fami only cares about the food she eats. Control just wanted to be loved and hugged and appreciated for who she was. What would you say death would be? To be alive? To feel alive? To see people's dreams? Maybe you could even go as far as that they hate themselves because of the power that they have. So if I was in that position, I would give that responsibility to a different devil, my personal hybrid, my weapon. So then we have the birth of Pochita. If you were to ask me where Pochita came from, I don't know. Utilizing the chainsaw with the lore of why they were used to begin with, you could say it's pretty sinister, but right up Death's alley. Chainsaws were originally designed to help with pregnancies, right? But maybe the power itself, the idea of erasing, or what I would personally consider to be extinction, either comes from the Death Horseman or a primal fear. If we mash a primal fear, chainsaw devil, and a human together, you kind of get what Denji is right now. A hybrid weapon that can go around and do whatever. Now, for argument's sake, Pochita was doing the dirty work of death. They were created by them. They handled everything in hell. What do you think would happen? Well, a lot of devils would fear them, and rightfully so. That's the only form of death devils even know. But devils would also worship him. Devils would create groups and cults to appreciate the quote-unquote chainsaw man. Now, this lays out the groundwork. Pochita being the, right-hand tool of death, doing all their dirty work. Why were they on Earth? Well, it could... We know that a lot of sentient, intelligent devils, horsemen for example, sometimes even primal fears, work on their opposite urges. One could make a pretty good argument that the opposite of being erased from all of existence is to be remembered. And the best form of remembrance is, funny enough, dreams. The idea of creating a dream and creating a memory so powerful that your dreams come true. Does that make sense? It sounds a little bit unorthodox and weird, but stick with me. There is a chance that Pochita, now known as Hero of Hell, actually found some good within devils. Maybe even to go as far as saying that he was interested in the human society. But to me, he might have fell in love with people's dreams. It might be what represented him on the other side. So he would seek out that dream. Now, how would he leave death? How would he leave the hybrids? How would he escape from all of this? Well, he would use his own power. Remember how I said the hybrids technically don't have a name? Why? They were originally called something before. Why would Pochita want to erase the concept that is the hybrid's name? Well, maybe it's what kept them under control. Maybe it's what set them free. I wouldn't be surprised if it set all the hybrids free, or maybe it just set himself free. It gave him enough time to technically leave, but not before he got encountered by the other horsemen. See, we know that Pochita has fought all the horsemen before. We don't know the exact details or what devils he went up against, but it was a very massive fight and a very powerful one. We've only seen a fraction of what Pochita is capable of. The fact that he went toe-to-toe with all of the horsemen at once, potentially with their own weaponry and even devils at their disposal and contracts, is ridiculous. And he managed to escape, not necessarily on death's door, but rather injured. Where did he escape to? To Earth. what better place to hide from the people you're trying to run away from, but also interested in if you want to see their dreams come true and want to be the one to fulfill them. This would be where chapter 1 starts. But you might think, oh, Makima's recollection of it's a little bit different. She's very untrustworthy. You might think, oh, the timeline doesn't really add up. I don't think there is a coherent timeline between Earth and Hell. Just to really throw it in an interesting direction in the sense of symbolism, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm trying to think it back all the way to chapter 1, and I thought about it just now. Denji and Pochita meet within a graveyard. Isn't that a little bit suspicious? Just a little bit suspicious.